Some people see the world in a way that's entirely different from the rest. They notice invisible patterns, sense the energy around them, and understand intentions before they're even expressed. If you've ever felt disconnected from others, because your mind seems to operate on another level, you might be an intuitive introvert, a rare and complex personality. But what does this really mean? Why do these individuals struggle to express themselves? Why do they always seem one step ahead, yet feel like no one truly understands them? In this video, you'll uncover the clear signs that you might be an intuitive introvert, and, more importantly, how to transform this unique ability into a powerful advantage in your life. Carl Jung described the intuitive introvert as someone deeply connected to the unconscious, capable of perceiving hidden patterns and predicting trends before they manifest in reality. This sensitivity can be a gift, allowing an expanded perception of reality, but it can also be a challenge when the world around seems to be out of sync with this way of seeing things. The intuitive introvert doesn't see the world the way most people do. While others absorb reality in a direct and objective manner, they perceive invisible nuances and catch patterns before they even form. More than just hearing words, they understand the intentions behind them. This heightened sensitivity makes their perceptions vast and difficult to share. Imagine someone who, upon entering a room, feels the tension before any disagreement even occurs, or someone who predicts the outcome of a conversation before anyone mentions the subject. They process everything in deep layers, and often their mind is light years ahead of the present moment. But this unique perception of the world can become a challenge when it's time to express it. How can you translate into words something that comes as a complete picture, a web of invisible connections? To others, intuition operates in multiple layers, while language follows a linear path. That's why they might hesitate or seem distant in trivial conversations. Their mind has already explored countless possibilities before they've even formed a response, and when they try to explain, the words seem insufficient. If they receive a confused look or a "wow, that's far out," they realize that what made sense in their mind couldn't be translated to the outside world. And it's precisely this difference that separates them from most people. While others go along with the flow of social interactions effortlessly, the intuitive introvert feels like a foreigner trying to translate a language that has no equivalent in their native tongue. They don't fit easily into everyday conversations because they're more interested in what's beyond the obvious. Their attention isn't just on the spoken word, but on the tone, the look, the intention behind it. However, this sharp perception, which sometimes isolates them, is the same that allows them to see hidden patterns and innovative solutions to problems that no one else has even identified. But there's one detail that makes all the difference. This ability isn't limited to their own inner world. The intuitive introvert has a peculiar way of perceiving people. They don't need many words to understand someone because they pick up on information that goes beyond what is said. Small gestures, subtle changes in tone of voice, word choice, and even silence tell them much more than they do for most people. That's why often they know when someone isn't doing well even before the person admits it. Have you ever had someone ask you, "How did you know that?" without you having a concrete explanation? This happens because their mind works associatively, connecting invisible signals to patterns they've already noticed before. And this ability isn't limited to people they know. The intuitive introvert can have an accurate impression of someone they've never seen before. They notice small details in posture, the way someone looks, or even the way the person moves. Have you ever felt an inexplicable distrust about someone only to later find out they really weren't trustworthy? Or the opposite, felt an instant connection with no apparent reason? This isn't magic, it's heightened perception. Their brain picks up on information that others ignore and assembles an invisible puzzle in a matter of seconds. But this ability can be a burden. They sense when a friendship isn't genuine, when someone is pretending to be calm, or when a smile doesn't match the eyes. Their sensitivity makes them selective because they can't ignore when something is out of tune. However, this very perception is a gift, allowing deeper connections with the right people. And when they find someone who truly resonates with their way of seeing the world, that connection can be rare and transformative. There are places that seem to suffocate even without an apparent reason. The intuitive introvert feels this deeply before any words are spoken. Their body has already reacted to the environment. They walk into a room and sense the tension in the air, as if an out-of-tune song is playing in the background. Sometimes they don't need to see a conflict to know it's happened. The dense energy gives it away. Likewise, there are spaces that bring immediate relief, as if harmony is embedded in the walls. This explains why they avoid certain places without a logical explanation. Their intuition works like a radar, reading invisible signals that others don't even notice. And this sensitivity is not limited to physical spaces. The mood of others intensely affects their emotional state. If someone nearby is distressed, they might feel a weight on their chest, even without knowing the reason. Sometimes just being near an anxious person makes their mind restless. They notice the slightest changes in a group's energy, a shift in tone, or a look that lingers a bit too long. This allows them to predict bad vibes before any discussion even takes place. That's why they tend to observe the environment before engaging, not out of shyness, but because they need to understand the terrain before stepping in. The problem is that this intense perception can be draining. Noisy, overstimulating environments quickly deplete their energy. Malls, crowded parties, or noisy meetings leave them mentally saturated as their brain processes everything without a break. This is why isolation isn't a luxury, but a necessity, an essential moment to reorganize their mind after absorbing so much from the external world. Inside the mind of an intuitive introvert, there's a whole universe. While most people focus on what's right in front of them, they dive into images, symbols, and ideas that come without warning. A simple object can spark unexpected associations, leading them to connect concepts that at first glance have no relation. This is why they often get lost in daydreams, exploring internal scenarios so complex that they seem real. Their mind isn't a flow of linear thoughts, but a deep ocean where every wave brings a hidden meaning. This connection with their inner world makes them naturally reflective. They analyze common events as if they were metaphors for life, searching for meanings that escape the superficial gaze. Instead of just remembering a rainy day, they notice the symbolism of the storm, the sound of the drops on the window, and the silent melancholy it evokes. This intensity leads them to find meaning where others see only routine. For them, every detail can be a piece of a grand puzzle their mind is always trying to solve. But this depth comes at a cost. They don't always manage to share these perceptions with others because few people understand this way of seeing the world. While everyday conversations revolve around facts and events, their mind is occupied with more abstract interpretations. This can make them feel isolated in their way of thinking, as if they are always a step ahead of concrete reality. However, this ability to see beyond the obvious shapes not only their worldview, but also their capacity to perceive invisible connections that most people can't even imagine. Nothing is just what it seems to an intuitive introvert. A simple leaf falling can symbolize the cycle of life, a farewell, or even a sign that changes are coming. Their mind doesn't process the world literally, but through symbols and metaphors, turning every experience into a greater meaning. They see hidden patterns in coincidences, perceive subliminal messages in what others call chance, and feel that somehow everything is interconnected. This symbolic way of seeing the world makes them deeply analytical, always trying to decode the invisible signals life sends them. This way of perceiving the world can influence their decisions and perceptions. Something seemingly common might carry enormous weight for them because their intuition guides them more than rational explanations. An opportunity might be dismissed not because it looks bad on paper, but because something within them signals that it's not the right path. They can sense when a phase of life is coming to an end before circumstances make it clear. Their way of processing information goes beyond regular logic. They pick up intuitive patterns as if they are always one step ahead in the timeline. But this symbolic view is not always understood by others. When they share their way of seeing life, it can seem enigmatic or even detached from reality. Someone might say, "Why are you seeing meaning in something so simple?" without realizing that this ability is exactly what makes them so insightful. They don't need concrete proof to know that something is changing because they've already felt it on a deeper level. And this intuition is what drives them to seek beyond the ordinary, to explore new ideas, and to anticipate possibilities that aren't yet visible to most. The intuitive introvert doesn't live only in the present. Their mind is constantly projecting future possibilities, analyzing patterns, and anticipating scenarios that others can't even imagine. While many cling to what's concrete and immediate, they are already seeing what's to come, as if their intuition works like a lighthouse, illuminating invisible paths. This makes them naturally drawn to the unknown, to abstract ideas and concepts that challenge common logic. They feel a constant restlessness, as if there's always something greater to be discovered. This visionary tendency makes it hard for them to handle repetitive routines and mundane obligations. Mechanical tasks, superficial conversations, and predictable duties quickly demotivate them because their mind needs challenges that stimulate their creativity and ability to see beyond the obvious. They're interested in philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and everything that involves deep reflection. If something doesn't spark their curiosity, they lose interest quickly. That's why they often feel like they don't belong to the traditional system, which values the predictable and stable, while their essence calls for expansion and discovery. But this focus on the future can also be a burden. They can get lost in their visions and ideas, stuck in mental scenarios without ever putting them into practice. They may get frustrated when they realize that the people around them aren't following their line of thought, or when their long-term vision isn't understood in the present. However, it's precisely this ability to see beyond the immediate that makes them creators of possibilities, people capable of transforming what doesn't yet exist into something real. But communicating such deep ideas can be frustrating, a challenge they face every day. Trying to explain something that was grasped intuitively can be frustrating. The intuitive introvert perceives connections that make immediate sense to them, but when they try to verbalize, the words seem too limited to translate their vision. They might start a sentence and, midway through it, realize the explanation is incomplete, that the idea is bigger than the available vocabulary. Sometimes what they want to say is so complex that it feels impossible to reduce it to something simple without losing its true meaning. And when they notice confused looks or vague responses, the frustration increases. This communication problem often leads them to silence in groups. They may prefer to listen rather than speak, not because they have no opinions, but because they know it will be hard to express them in a way others understand. When they take the risk to share, they might end up losing themselves in aggressions or giving shorter answers than they'd like, just to avoid explanations that may not be well received. Has anyone ever interrupted them with, "But what does this have to do with it?" when in their mind everything was connected? This can make them feel that the world operates in a language that's not their own. On the other hand, this communication difficulty doesn't mean a lack of internal clarity. On the contrary, their mind works in an extremely sophisticated way, connecting information that many people would never associate. The problem is translating this to those who think in a more linear way. When they meet someone who can keep up, With them, the conversation flows, and their ideas take shape effortlessly. But these moments are rare, and until they happen, they need to find alternative ways to express themselves. Often, writing becomes their best ally because it allows them to organize their thoughts at their own pace. Still, this feeling of being misunderstood never completely disappears, which can lead them to feel alienated from most people. Living with a perception different from the majority can be a silent burden. The intuitive introvert doesn't just see the world differently, they also feel that few truly understand them. While the people around them engage in casual conversations about daily matters, their mind is somewhere else, analyzing deeper issues, imagining scenarios, capturing hidden meanings. This disconnection can make them feel like a stranger among those who should be their peers. They're physically there, but their mind wanders as if belonging to another reality. This sense of isolation isn't limited to groups. Even in close friendships and relationships, they can feel an invisible distance. They notice nuances that go unnoticed, sense unspoken emotions, and often wonder if anyone really understands them. When they share something profound, they might hear a simple, "You think too much," which makes them close off even more, preferring to keep their feelings and thoughts to themselves. But this loneliness doesn't necessarily mean sadness. In fact, the intuitive introvert often enjoys their own space and frequently prefers solitude over bad company. The problem arises when this disconnection becomes a cycle, pushing them away from experiences and people that could contribute to their growth. They may feel like they're always on the edge, torn between wanting to connect and needing distance, between wanting understanding and fearing being misunderstood. However, finding this balance is essential so that their introspection doesn't turn into complete isolation. Being alone is essential for the intuitive introvert. It's in silence that they recharge their energies, organize their thoughts, and reconnect with their essence. However, there's a subtle line between introspection and isolation. Spending too much time in their own mind can distance them from experiences that give life meaning. They might find themselves postponing meetings, avoiding events, or simply ignoring opportunities for connection because they feel most social interactions are superficial or draining. The problem is that, without realizing it, they may be closing themselves off from valuable exchanges that could enrich their worldview. This doesn't mean they should force themselves into social situations that don't make sense to them. On the contrary, the key to this balance lies in finding people and environments that truly bring meaning. They need deep conversations, authentics, connections, and spaces where they can simply be themselves without having to explain themselves all the time. Instead of trying to fit into a world that seems too fast-paced and noisy, they can create their own rules, small group gatherings, friendships based on shared interests, and moments of exchange that have depth rather than just filling time. Connecting with the world doesn't need to be an obligation, but rather a complement to their introspection. Exploring new ideas, sharing thoughts with those who truly understand, and allowing themselves to participate in something greater can bring the balance that's missing when one is always immersed in their own inner universe. Solitude can be an ally, but it can also become an invisible prison. Finding that point of harmony requires self-awareness and small attitude changes, but it's worth it because even the richest mind needs new inspirations to keep evolving. If, throughout this text, you recognized yourself, perhaps it's time to take a closer look at the way you see and interact with the world. Do you feel like you pick up on information that others ignore? Do you struggle to explain your thoughts because they seem too complex to be translated? Do you prefer solitude because most of the time social interactions feel superficial? These are just a few characteristics that define an intuitive introvert, but how they manifest varies from person to person. Think about your past experiences. How many times have you felt like you were one step ahead in understanding things, only to be discredited because no one else saw what you saw? Have you ever predicted the outcome of a situation without any concrete evidence, just based on your intuition? Or felt an immediate connection or an inexplicable block with someone you just met? These are clues that your mind works in a way that can't always be explained rationally. The big question is, how do you handle this heightened perception? Do you close yourself off and avoid sharing your ideas, or do you try to find ways to express yourself better? Do you use your intuition for personal growth, or do you feel lost amid all the internal information? Self-awareness is the first step to transforming this sensitivity into a gift rather than a burden, and understanding how to channel it into a more balanced life is something Carl Jung explored in his studies on the human psyche. Carl Jung understood that the intuitive introvert has a sharp perception, but it can end up getting lost in their own mind. For him, the secret was balance, embracing intuition without withdrawing from the real world. He suggested that such individuals transform their inner vision into something concrete, whether through writing, art, or the study of the human psyche. Without this, intuition would become just a flow of disconnected thoughts from reality. Jung also warned about the risk of isolation. He believed that while the intuitive introvert prefers introspection, connection with the outside world is essential. Finding ways to structure and communicate their ideas helps give purpose to their perceptions. The more they translate their intuition into something practical, the more meaningful their existence becomes. Finally, Jung emphasized the importance of self-knowledge. The intuitive introvert should not try to fit in, but instead accept their unique way of seeing the world and learn to express it clearly. Their mind is a rare gift, but without application, it can become a burden. When they learn to balance intuition and action, they stop being just an observer and become a true agent of transformation. If you want to delve deeper into this topic and learn how Jungian psychology can help you better understand your mind and develop your perception, I invite you to check out my ebook, Alchemy and Archetypes, Exploring Inner Transformation through Jungian Psychology. It covers fundamental concepts of individuation and archetypes, along with practical exercises that will help you apply this knowledge in your life in a clear and objective way. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue learning how to develop your potential and better understand yourself.